Okay, hi there. We're trying out something new. Trying out this webinar system that is connected between Google Hangouts and YouTube. And want to see if this is a good way to do a webinar. I've done a lot of webinars in the past, but I've used a different program for it. And this one is actually a bit more complicated. So here we go. So please be patient with me and I appreciate it. Just want to give this thing a shot and see if we can get it to work, because I think it has a lot of really cool potential to be able to do webinars this way. I like webinars. I like giving them and I like attending them. I think they can really be a wonderful learning experience, wonderful learning opportunity, and a great chance to connect in a different way. All right, so it looks like we're working. I'm seeing the buttons come up for the audio, so it looks like we have a good microphone and it looks like we've got a good connection. And it appears as though you can see my screen. What you should see right now is the front page of my PowerPoint, which says how to set yourself up for writing success. So that's what should be on your screen. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk you through some steps, and I hope that this really is just super useful to people. I had a great conversation with a student on Thursday, and she was telling me about how she had set New Year's resolutions for herself around the topic of writing. She wants to do some particular writing pieces. She wanted to do a series of short stories, and she also wanted to do a series of journal entries. And she wanted to start brainstorming around the idea of a novel. She said that she wasn't totally certain if she wanted to do the novel or not, but she wanted to brainstorm around it. And so these were her ideas. And she was telling me that she is having a really hard time with it, because she set herself up in January to achieve these certain goals. And as time went on, and as her life got busy again, and as she was trying to keep up with other things, she said she just kind of fell apart and it wasn't working for her anymore. And so she and I sat and talked for about 20 minutes, and I came up with a few ideas to help get her started. And after she left the conversation, she said she really felt like she had the exact tools that she needed to solve her problem, which was to go and readdress the goals that she had set for herself and start back into those in a way that she could then go and achieve her goals. So I was pretty excited about that. And that's what I have put together in this PowerPoint. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So I hope that there's a little nugget somewhere in here of useful information that you can use for your own writing goals and for setting yourself up for success to achieve those. So let's take a look at what we have here. Through our PowerPoint. Okay. So I don't know about you, but I am definitely the kind of person who always sets a New Year's resolution. Even if I don't really set it down in paper, I'll still set a resolution in my mind. I'll still tell myself, well, you know what, this year I'm going to accomplish these things, and I'm going to make an attempt at getting better in these areas. And since I'm a writer and I like to write, I usually set up a resolution around writing. But then, because I'm also an instructor, I also end up getting really busy in January, because that's typically the beginning of a new semester. And so I end up getting super busy in January, and sometimes my resolutions fall apart. If you are a person who sets resolutions, and this may sound familiar to you, this might be a situation that you have also experienced, where you have great ideas and good intentions, but the follow through can be challenging. So what is it that gets in the way? Well, we all live these very complicated lives these days. So we're not in a situation anymore where we have really simple lives where you wake up and then you think about, oh gosh, what should I do today? For most of us, we wake up and most days we've got a list, a long list of things that we have to get done. We work, we have kids, we have homes, we have pets, we have all kinds of things that need attention. And so sometimes getting to our writing can be down at the bottom of the list. And that can cause some problems, especially for writers who find personal satisfaction with their writing. For those of us who write because it helps us to feel better about ourselves, it's a part of our that we choose to engage in, and it's also a part of our professional um, list of tasks that we do. These kinds of challenges can really get in the way and create a pretty nasty situation. We don't want that. So, what can we do to become more successful? So, there are a couple of little tidbits that you can use to be a more successful writer. And I'm going to share those with you, and I'm going to give you a list of 7 steps that you can take that can help you along this path to success. So, one thing I want you to think about is ritual. Okay. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit weird, like ritual. Why would you say ritual? That's strange. But I mean it. I'm really talking about ritual here. If you are a person who gets up in the morning and the first thing that you do is to go get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or the first thing that you do is to go brush your teeth, or maybe the first thing that you do is to go let the dog out, you have a ritual in your life. And because you have a ritual in your life, because you've made it part of your typical everyday plan that you just get up and you go make the coffee or you go let the dog out, that is your ritual. You always do it. You kind of do it without thinking. And if you didn't do it, things would feel very strange. So we can take this idea around ritual and we can apply that to our writing. It can help us to become more successful. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about, is to look at how can we make writing into a ritual, okay? If we make writing into a ritual, we can make it so that it's easier to go to our writing. It's easier to continue with our writing. It's easier to stick with it, and we'll be more successful overall, okay? And these steps, these 7 steps that I've got listed out here for you, I'm going to address each one individually, but these are the steps that I've identified that can help you to take this idea of writing and your goals around writing and to make that into a ritual. So therefore, to make it successful. So let's take a look at this first item here, our first item on our list, which is space. Okay. When I'm talking about space, I'm talking about a location, a setup that you have. People like to write in all kinds of different ways. Some people like to stand, some people like to lie down, some sitting in a big comfy chair. Others will be sitting at a desk. Whatever works for you is what you need to include in your ritual. Okay. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, like, oh, but aren't I supposed to be at a desk with a computer and a printer and things like this? And the answer is no, absolutely not. What you're supposed to be doing is figuring out your formula, figuring out what is the formula for your ritual and doing that, because that really is what's going to work. That is what's going to help you to be more successful as a writer and to create that writing plan and to stick with it. So whatever you need for your space, that's the first thing that I want you to do. I want you to set up your space. If that means clearing off part of a table, if it means getting your desk tidied up, if it means setting up your nightstand with your writing things so that you can write while you're lying down in bed. Some people like to lie down in bed to write. If it means creating a standing desk because you like to stand up to write, okay, get that to happen. A bookshelf, if you've got a short bookshelf, top of a bookshelf can make a great standing desk. I have one that I use that is a bookshelf, and at the top of it, I've got my set up there so that I can write standing at the bookshelf. And it is a very inexpensive way to create a standing desk so that you don't have to go out and buy something pricey if you're interested in standing to write, if you're that kind of a person. So the first thing I want you to take into consideration is space. How are you going to set up your space, your location to write? Okay. For me personally, here's what I do. I'll tell you mine. I get up really early in the morning. So I'm up between 4 and 5 every day. I get up. My ritual is that I go to my coffee maker, I make my coffee. And then my next thing that I do is I go to my to-do list and I take a look at my to-do list of what I need to do during the day so that I have a plan. And then I start to write. And I'll write on a day that I'm really busy, I might write for just 10 or 15 minutes. On a day where my schedule is lighter, my to-do list is lighter, I may spend more time writing. I may write for an hour or an hour and a half before moving on to my other tasks. But that's what I do. My space is in the kitchen. It's very early in the morning, which I love to write really early in the morning. The whole house is quiet. Nobody's bothering me. Nobody's talking to me. For me, that's a fantastic time for me to write. So I do that. I like to write when it's dark outside. I find it to be really calming, nice and quiet, and I can focus that way. I'm not being distracted by other things going on, so I like that. Do you want to figure out what space works for you? Once you've got your space worked out, I want you to think about your schedule. Now, for me, like I said, I get up early in the morning to write, and I do that 7 days a week. I'm too distracted or easily distractible to write a couple of days a week and to remember to do it. So for me, it's kind of all or nothing. I really have to do 7 days a week. And I have to do early in the morning. And when I do that, and when I stick with that formula for my ritual, I get it done. So I want you to think about what's going to work for you. There are 3 different schedules that I'll recommend to you. One is to write 7 days a week. And even if you're only writing for 10 or 15 minutes, that is completely acceptable. Don't feel like your writing has to be for 2 hours or 3 hours or something extended like this. It definitely doesn't. It can be a short period of time, okay? Because what we're doing here is we're creating a plan for writing success, okay? This is going to help you get into that pattern of being successful as a writer. So first of all, set up your space. And then number 2, set up your schedule. One thing you can do is to write every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even if you're writing just 10 or 15 minutes, it counts. This is what some people need to do. For me, this is what I need to do. Another option is to do every other day. So you do a day on and a day off and a day on and a day off and so forth. And for some people, this works out really well because on their day on, they'll be very focused in on the writing. And then on the day off, they'll be focused in on coming up with ideas about what they will do for the next day. So you'll spend one day thinking and brainstorming, and the next day you'll spend writing, and then the next day thinking and brainstorming, and the next day writing, and so forth. For some people, that is a schedule that works out really well for them. So consider that. The third one that I recommend is a weekend writing schedule. For some people, their week, Monday through Friday, is just way too jam-packed between work and kids and house and school and commuting and activities and this sort of thing. So it's impossible for them to work Monday through Friday. For them, I definitely recommend set aside your Saturday and your Sunday, make time on both of those days, and that becomes your writing time. That can be very, very successful for people who are too busy during the week. So far you've set up your space, and now you've set up your schedule. You set up your schedule, I want you to set up a really specific time. Like I will write from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, great. Whatever your schedule is, it has to work for you, not for somebody else. So make sure that it's going to work. Okay, so now you've got a space and now you've got a schedule. So now you need stuff, okay? And for stuff, I want you to think about what is it that you like to have, to use, and to have around you while you're writing. So for me, I like to have a hot, very hot cup of coffee or cup of tea when I'm writing. I love really, really hot coffee and tea. And so that works out very well for me for writing. For me, also, bright light works out really well. I'm a person who wears glasses, I'm farsighted. And so for me to be able to have a bright light so that I can see really easily without squinting or without getting eye strain, that helps me a lot. And for me, I actually like to write in different ways. So I do like to have a notebook. Sometimes, I'll write by hand. Sometimes I will also use a typewriter. And I know that sounds super weird, but it's an idea that I ran across a few months ago and tried it out, and I actually love it. There is a whole group of people out there who are using typewriters to write again. And it's great if you are easily distracted. So if you're a person who goes onto your computer and you go, okay, I'm just going to check one email, and then I'm going to check Facebook, and then I'm going to jump on Pinterest for a second. Oh, and then I've got to go check my other email account, and I've got to do a couple more things. Okay, you are way too distracted to use a laptop. So you might be the right person to consider using a typewriter or a notebook instead. The typewriter is great because you're still using a keyboard, which for many of us, we're so accustomed to using a keyboard that we can be really fast with our writing by doing it that way. And so that might work out well for you to consider that. I know it sounds kind of strange, but it actually works out really well, and it's actually really fun. And I've seen, I don't know how many typewriters that are for free or inexpensive for just $20 up on Craigslist or other places. So you can pick up a typewriter for pretty cheap if that's something you want to consider. So I want you to think about what you need. Okay. Do you need food and beverages? Do you need a certain kind of light? Do you need a certain kind of notebook, typewriter, or laptop to be able to write? Do you need to have big butcher block paper to do your brainstorming on? Some people like to brainstorm in a very large way. Do you like to use sticky notes? Some people will use Post-it notes for their brainstorming. Whatever it is that you need, get it. Go to the store, pick up what you need, get it set up in your space so that you're ready to write. Because these little bits and pieces may not seem like a big deal, but they add up to being the correct formula to create that ritual so that you can be successful in your writing. Okay, the next thing that I want you to do, and this is going to be a little bit of a hard one because I find that most writers have multiple different kinds of writing that they like to do. So for example, I may run across one person who really likes to write memoir, but also likes to do journal writing. Or I might run across another person who is interested in writing essays, but is also thinking about writing a novel. All of these things are completely normal for people to want to do those things. But when you're starting off that ritual and where you are creating the ritual for writing so that you can be successful, I want you to start off with just one style, okay? Just one style to begin with. Because if you start one style to begin with, you are more likely to be successful. Let me give you a scenario here. If I start off writing and I haven't written, let's just imagine that I haven't written for a while. It's been some time. So I go to set up my space and my schedule, and I've got my stuff all in one place. So I'm ready to go. And on Monday, I sit down to write and I start working on a journal entry. And then on Tuesday, I sit down and I decide, you know what, I actually want to write an essay. So I start writing an essay. And then on Wednesday, I decide, you know what, this actually is a great idea for a memoir. So I start into a memoir. And then on Thursday, I think, oh, I've got this cool idea for a short story. I'll start into that. And then on Friday, I feel so scattered and unaccomplished because I've started all of these pieces, none of which I've finished. And so I'm actually a mess by the time that Friday comes around. So just to get yourself started, I want you to choose one writing style. It doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to choose one writing style and one project, and I want you to stick with it for that first month, okay? So if you're thinking, okay, I'll start off with journal writing and I'll do journal entries. That is perfect. Couldn't be better. Or if you just want to start off with brainstorming, if you've got an idea for maybe a memoir, come up with the brainstorm and ideas of different topics that you want to cover in that memoir, but stick with just one to start off with. It will improve your likelihood of success. The other thing that I want you to take into consideration is audience, because this can make a huge difference in the way that you approach your writing. Let me tell you about this. So for a blog that I write it to my kids. And so they are the two people that are my audience for that blog. And what I do is that I write book reviews of books that I think that they should read. And so it's a really simple blog. I don't think anybody reads it except maybe my mom, and I don't even think she reads it all the time. So it's not a blog that's well read by a large audience, but I'm okay with that because my intended audience is my children. So when I go to write each of those blog posts, I have in mind my kids. I'm thinking about them, and I'm thinking about the way that I would write to them and the things that I want to say to them and the ideas that I want to communicate. Because, if I think about the things that I want to pass on to them, the blog posts, the blog entries are going to be something that I do want to pass on to them. That is information I'm going to want them to have because I want them to know that I really do want them to read Fahrenheit 451. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And I want them to know why I want them to read that book and why I think it's so important. So take into consideration your audience. Now, I've put up a picture here of a general reader. Okay, not everybody reads on the roof, of course, but I thought she just looked like the kind of person who goes into a bookstore and grabs a book to read or goes into the library to grab a book. So we have here our general audience. You can write to a general audience. You can also write to yourself. Sometimes people write to themselves when they're doing journal entries and diary work, that sort of thing. You can also write to a family member. And mind you, when you're considering audience, this doesn't mean that you actually have to give your work to those people. So if you decide, you know what, I'm going to write to my sister. I've got some issues with my sister. I want to write a series of journal entries or personal essays to my sister, and she's going to be my audience. I'm not telling you that you have to then print those up and go hand them to her and say, here, read these. You don't have to do that. What it will do for you by considering your audience is it will help you to focus your writing. So if you can focus that writing down so that you've got a clearer tone and style and purpose and audience, you're going to be more successful in your writing than if you're going all over the place of like, okay, this one's written to my mom and this one's written to my sister and this one's written to my Aunt Margie. If you stay more focused with your audience, you're going to stick with it. And that's what we want to do. We want to create a ritual here. By creating a ritual, we are creating a path for success. Okay, the other thing that I want you to take into consideration is support. I know that we have the idea that writers are lonely, introverted people who sit in the basement and write by themselves, but it's actually not true. Many writers are very social people who write in groups and who write together. So here are a few ideas I want you to take into consideration. I want you to take into consideration writing prompts. These can be incredibly useful if you are stuck, need an idea for getting going, and you can jump onto Pinterest or Google and search around for writing prompts that match up with your style and your audience to get you over a hump. If you're up against a challenge of like, oh gosh, no idea what to write, worst writer's block I've had in years, and oh, I'm stuck. That's where it's a great opportunity to go to a prompt to jumpstart that creativity, jumpstart that thought process. Another thing to consider is a writing group. You can find writing groups at your rec center, your library, art galleries, in nonprofit organizations. You can find them all over the place. And if you live in a place where there aren't writing groups that are available, you search and search and you can't find any, start one. Because I know it may seem like, oh, but I'm the only one who's writing and the only one who's interested. But I think you'd actually be really surprised to find out how many people love to write and how many people write for a wide variety of reasons. To express themselves, to engage in their artistic activity, to collect their thoughts, to get themselves organized, to reach their goals, and so forth. Very powerful. They can be incredibly helpful. I have two writing groups. I have two writing partners is what I do. One writing partner, when she and I meet, we read our writing out loud. We come up with ideas to help each other move forward. And so we do a lot of sharing with our writing. With my other writing partner, we really don't share, but what we do is we just sit at the table together and write. And for me, that is super helpful because when I know that I have to meet her at a certain time every single Sunday and I have to be there because she's expecting me, then I sit down and I write and I get a lot done. And it's wonderful accountability measure. Courses. Definitely recommend that you take a look at workshops and courses that are available. There are wonderful workshops and professional development type courses that are available online as well as in person. And again, take a look at your rec center, your library, nonprofit organizations that are around. We've got a wonderful art gallery in town that offers several different writing courses and workshops. It's called Firehouse, and they're here in town, and they just do a great job, and they've got all kinds of wonderful courses, writing courses that they offer. So definitely something to take into consideration. I've gone the last couple of years to University of Iowa. In the summer, they have writing courses that they offer. One version is on the weekend, so just a Saturday and Sunday, and the other version is Monday through Friday. They're fantastic. I walk in there knowing that I need to learn something new, and I walk out of there learning so much more than I ever expected. It's just fantastic. And then when you get to that point of where you've got a polished piece of writing, that's the opportunity to look for a coach. And writing coaches, man, you can find them the same kinds of places as well as community colleges and colleges. Writing coaches can be incredibly useful in getting you to really hone in on that editing and revising process so that you can polish your writing to make it the best that it possibly can be. So get support with your writing. You're going to be more successful if you have some kind of a support system, even if all that support system is to talk your friend into meeting you up at the coffee shop so that you can sit at the table and write together, once a week for an hour. It makes a big difference. Okay, and then finally, so you got your space, you got your schedule, you've got your stuff, you've got everything set up, right? And you're moving into your new ritual that you've created for yourself. Now, what I want you to do as you're working through this is I want you to adjust along the way, okay? Let me give you an example. So I was trying to write at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to write between 7 and 8 a.m. every day, and it was a disaster for me. Didn't work at all. So here's what I would do. I'd take my computer into the living room. I'd sit down on the couch, and while everybody in my house was getting up and getting going and doing their thing, I would sit there and try to write. Terrible idea because it was noisy. People were asking me questions, interrupting, and I couldn't get anything done. And then not only that, but I was also getting irritated with people because they were interrupting me. But they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just doing what they do normally. So I evaluated that situation and said, you know what, this isn't working for me. And then I reflected. I looked back over the last week or so and recognized how many times I'd been interrupted, how many times I'd been stopped from doing my writing and distracted onto other things. And so I decided to adjust. So I realized that wasn't working. It was time to adjust. I needed to make changes. So I did. I made the change, and what I did was that I changed my schedule. So I stopped working at 7 o'clock in the morning and I started getting up at 5. And by getting up at 5, I was able to work with quiet, to be uninterrupted, and to have the things that I wanted around me. I wanted the quiet. I wanted to have my hot coffee in the morning, and I wanted to be able to focus. So I made the adjustment, and it worked beautifully. I expect that the first time through that you try your ritual of creating your writing process, I think that you're going to make some adjustments. I don't think it's going to be perfect the first time through. I think you're going to have to make some little tweaks along the way, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that, to make adjustments. That just means that you're honing in on how to make that process better for yourself. Okay, so what do? We want to recognize that writing is a ritual, that this is a viewpoint shift that we can get in our minds to becoming more successful as writers. We're going to follow these steps to set ourselves up for a positive writing ritual that's going to work. And that's what we want. We want something that's actually going to work. And then we're going to adjust along the way, adjust as needed. If you recognize like, oh, I thought getting up early was going to work and it didn't work, maybe I'll try going late or something like that. Okay. I've got a lot of blog entries up on ondemandinstruction.com. You are welcome to go there and sign up for the blog subscription. Entry once a week. It's a great accountability for me to have a blog because it forces me to make sure that I'm always blogging and always writing and always kind of keeping my hand in and forcing myself to move forward. But all of the blogs that I write are on writing instruction and how you can be more successful with your writing. And so please go and sign up, because I think that there are some good tidbits in there that can help you to be more successful, which for me, that's my entire purpose. I want to help you be more successful. That's what I'm after. So I hope that this webinar was useful for you. I hope that you got some good information here, and I hope that you have some steps that you can follow. You can create your own writing ritual, and that you can be more successful in your writing and hopefully go back and achieve those goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, and now just kind of pick things up and achieve your goals now. Please reach out if I can be of help to you in any way, and good luck with your writing.